Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really fundamental. Ever feel those energy crashes? Or maybe those stubborn cravings you just can't shake? What if it's, a deeper kind of fuel crisis in your body? We're diving deep into metabolic flexibility.
Right. It sounds technical, maybe, but it's really about your body's amazing innate knack for switching fuel sources. Think glucose, think fat, your internal energy manager, basically.
And that adaptability, that seems to be a huge key, right? For energy, focus, just overall well-being. It doesn't just affect the physical, but mental and emotional states too.
Oh, absolutely. It's foundational. We all have this capacity. It's baked into our genes. It's how our ancestors managed, times of plenty and times of scarcity. Activity, rest, it allowed them to thrive.
Okay, so our mission today, let's really unpack this internal fuel switch. We need to explore what it is, why it's so crucial, how modern life messes with it,
Yeah.
how you might feel its loss, and importantly, how to get it back. Let's dig in. What is metabolic flexibility, really?
Well, at its heart, it's about your cells being able to efficiently use one fuel or another. Depends on the situation. And the main players are glucose, sugar, and fat. Those are the two big ones.
Okay, glucose and fat. What about protein? I've heard that can be used too.
It can, yeah, but usually only in, let's say, extreme circumstances. Protein's really valuable for building things, repairing tissues. Burning it for fuel isn't ideal. It can actually leave some harmful residues for the cells. So the body tries to avoid that.
Got it. So primarily glucose or fat. And the thinking on this has shifted, hasn't it? It used to be all about glucose being the main, maybe the only fuel that really mattered.
That's right. That was the older view. But we now understand both are critical. And what's really interesting is that fat is often a super efficient, clean fuel source. For sustained energy, a lot of our cells actually, prefer fat. So metabolic flexibility is exactly that, the ability to dynamically switch, to use the glucose pathway or the fat pathway seamlessly.
That really clears it up. An internal energy manager.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds sophisticated. So what signals the body? Which fuel tap to turn on when? How does it decide?
It's incredibly dynamic, like you said. Several things trigger the switch. First off, what you just ate. If you had a meal high in carbs, like sugary fruits, bread, pasta, sweets, your body goes, okay, glucose pathway time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ate a meal rich in healthy fats, it'll lean more towards the fat pathway.
Makes sense. Food first. What else?
Then there's your eating state.
Yeah.
Right after you eat, the postprandial state, we call it glucose is dominant.
Yeah.
Your body's dealing with the incoming food. But when you're fasting, maybe overnight or between meals, the fat pathway takes over. That's when you tap into your reserves.
Okay, so fed state versus fasted state.
Exactly. And activity level matters too. Are you resting? Are you exercising intensely? Different tissues, muscles, heart, even your immune system might need fuel. And the body directs glucose or fat accordingly. And don't forget stress. Big one.
Stress affects fuel use.
Yeah, during stressful moments, perceived danger, high demand, many organs need extra energy, fast. And they'll access it through their preferred metabolic route to meet that sudden need.
Wow, so our bodies are just naturally built for this constant shifting, this adaptation. It's deep-seated.
It's an innate capacity built into our genetic blueprint, honed over countless generations. It's a survival tool, allowing us to adapt to whatever life throws at us, changing environments, food availability.
But there's a but, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong in modern life.
That's the crux of the issue, yeah. Modern diets, modern lifestyles, they're effectively anchoring us metabolically. We're losing this essential flexibility that's served us so well for so long.
Anchoring us. How so?
Well, think about the typical modern diet, often very high in easily digested carbohydrates, sugars, and we tend to eat frequently, right, grazing all day. This leads to constant, or at least repeated, spikes in blood glucose and the hormone insulin.
Okay, so lots of glucose, lots of insulin. What does that do to the pathways?
That constant surge strongly activates the glucose pathway. But here's the key. It simultaneously inactivates the fat pathway. They're like alternate routes on a highway. You generally don't use both at the exact same time. So if you're always pushing glucose, that pathway gets, hypertrophied, overdeveloped. And the fat pathway, it atrophies. It gets weaker from disuse.
So the machinery itself gets rusty.
That's a great way to put it. It literally kind of oxidizes, gets stuck, bogged down. It loses that smooth switching ability. And it's not just food. Being sedentary, chronic stress, which is rampant, and not getting enough good sleep, all these things super common today, they massively contribute to losing this flexibility.
That image of metabolic anchoring getting rusty, it really hits home. So for someone listening, if they suspect they're metabolically stuck, what would they actually feel? How does this show up day to day?
The consequences are pretty widespread, actually. You'll likely notice it first with energy and your mental state. Think unstable energy, big peaks and crashes. Feeling like you have to eat constantly just to keep going, maybe finding it really hard to start the day or even do light exercise without eating first.
That feeling of being ruled by food.
Exactly. Feeling controlled by food, not in control of it. Strong cravings, often for sweets, processed snacks. Mentally, it can manifest as, brain fog, persistent fatigue, difficulty concentrating, even finding it harder to be creative or imaginative.
And emotionally, you mentioned that earlier too.
Yes, there's often an energetic emotional imbalance. Feeling more irritable, maybe susceptible to mood swings, getting genuinely grumpy or sad, melancholic, specifically when you haven't eaten for a bit, can lead to poorer emotional regulation overall and even contribute to anxiety or depression, especially if there's a clear link to food dependence.
And physically,
Yeah.
beyond energy levels.
Physically, a common sign is a tendency to gain weight or finding it incredibly hard to lose weight, even with effort. Often, it's that accumulation of fat around the middle, the abdominal or visceral fat. And that type of fat is particularly problematic because it actively produces inflammatory molecules.
Ah, so it fuels inflammation.
Precisely. It contributes to this low-grade, chronic, uncontrolled inflammation throughout the body. And that can show up as joint pain, maybe skin issues like rashes, a general feeling of heaviness or stiffness,
Yeah.
vague body aches, maybe problems with immune function too.
And the bigger picture, the long-term health risks.
Well, this is where it gets really serious. This loss of metabolic flexibility is fundamentally linked to many major modern chronic diseases. We're talking type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular problems, heart disease, stroke, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and even many types of cancer. They're sometimes called the Four Horsemen, the leading causes of death in the Western world. Yeah. So at the root of a huge amount of modern illness, and just that general feeling of not being fully well, lies this loss of metabolic flexibility.
Okay, that sounds pretty bleak when you lay it all out like that.
Yeah.
The anchoring, the rust, the diseases. But you said earlier, this isn't necessarily permanent. There's good news here, right? What's fascinating is this flexibility, it can be trained. We can get it back.
Yes, absolutely. That's the really empowering part. It's not a fixed state. You can train it every single day. You can recover what's lost or enhance what you have. We generally focus on 3 key areas: diet, exercise, and lifestyle factor.
All right, let's break those down. Diet first. Where do we start?
The biggest impact usually comes from eliminating or at least drastically reducing the foods most damaging to these pathways. Top of the list, added sugar, artificial sweeteners, they mess with things too, and those highly refined industrial seed oils. Getting those out is huge.
Okay, cut out the main offenders. What about exercise?
Exercise is critical. And for metabolic flexibility specifically, strength training is really the star player. Building or maintaining muscle mass is incredibly beneficial for metabolic health. But honestly, any movement helps. Make an effort to move daily. Walking, gardening, taking the stairs, housework, all of it helps activate the metabolic machinery, keeps it, oiled and running smoothly.
So strength training is key, but general movement is also essential.
Got it.
And the third piece, lifestyle.
Lifestyle is absolutely crucial, maybe underrated sometimes. 2 big things here: sleep and stress. Prioritizing sleep hygiene, getting enough quality, restorative sleep is non-negotiable. So much repair and regulation happens then. And actively managing stress. Chronic stress is just toxic for our metabolic pathways. Finding healthy ways to cope is vital.
Diet, exercise, sleep, stress management. Sounds like the fundamentals of health, really.
It is, because metabolic flexibility is fundamental health.
So as we've explored in this deep dive, it seems like reclaiming this or boosting it is genuinely within reach for you, the listener. It's not about some magic bullet, but those consistent daily choices adding up.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave you with: just consider this evolutionary gift we have, this incredible innate ability to switch fuels designed for survival, for adaptation. What could it mean for your health, your future, if you consciously decided to reclaim that metabolic wisdom, especially in a world that often seems designed to suppress it? How might understanding that truly empower you and unlock your body's amazing potential?